All right. Should I look at you or the camera? I guess look at the camera, huh? Okay. We're outside the courthouse today, where all the legal action actually took place. In a million years, I never would have thought writing a piece of software that automates a video game would somehow result in copyright infringement or tortious interference. You know, it's just surprising to be here at all. Really. That's how I can sum up all the legal stuff right there. Never would have expected it.
There is no indication that anything can slow the explosive growth of the intoxicating game called World of Warcraft.
And the global World of Warcraft community is now 12 million strong and growing.
We're talking about the goods you buy for games, virtual goods, items that make your character cooler, better, more fun. It's a growing industry, and as Call 12 for Action tells you, just because it's virtual doesn't mean it won't cost you.
It's really hard when someone comes up to you and asks you, like, what do you do? You know, usually I just say I work with video games, because if I say I'm a virtual currency broker, people just kind of look at you like, what?
Really, it all boils down to I was selling the service of acquiring an item in a video game and transferring it to another player.
I actually took the week off the launch of the game so I could sit there and play it all day and don't have to worry about working.
There's an incredible amount of demand for virtual services in online games.
我们村子里的人呢，就是首先来说，很少有人知道我在家里面做这个，因为我们家里人，包括我们做的保密工作一直都比较好。
It's very addicting. There's so many things you can do. It just overwhelms you. The game.
It was at that time that I realized that people will spend money on virtual things no differently than they would for tangible things. That was kind of that eureka moment for me.
It's a chance for me to spend time with the most passionate, creative, and fun community of gamers anywhere. We're going to have a great time.
It's great weather out, and it's nice to not be escorted by, you know, a bunch of lawyers and have to talk to Blizzard's lawyers. I mean, they're good guys, but they're trying to ruin my life and succeeding.
Okay, Gary and I were playing Falcon against each other at the beginning of the program here in the same room. Nowadays, you can actually play a real-time computer game against an opponent anywhere in the country. Wendy Woods tells us how.
This is an example of what's called a multi-user game, and Michael Orkin, a statistician, is playing it with two other people 2,000 miles away in real time.
As soon as the world discovered the internet and the ability of one person to sort of communicate with another by this means, people immediately invented, hey, let's make games there.
It's different. It's kind of fun.
By today's standards, these worlds were almost unbelievably crude. They were not visual at all. These were text-based.
You know, you're standing in a wood-paneled room, and before you was an ogre, and that was just some other person who logged in.
These are communities of people, of players, competing for resources or struggling for resources. They're trying to get things.
In fact, that's kind of fun too, I guess, if you get in conflicts with the people that you're playing the game with.
And what's happened is that that basic technology, which goes back to the 70s, grew up. And all of a sudden, people started to make graphical video games, or 3D and immersive, that a lot of people could play at once. And that's sort of what we think of when we say virtual world.
The computer game business isn't just for kids anymore. It generates hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and it's just getting started. One of its entrepreneurs is Richard Garriott, a young man who grew up the son of an astronaut and whose dreams have become whole new worlds in the Ultima computer games that he invents and markets.
I want to build a place which is real enough for you to believe that it's real.
Britannia is already being rebuilt for the next game. And with technology changing so rapidly, there's no telling how real Garriott's world will get.
Ultima will be the very first ever completely virtual worlds, and that's my goal.
When we launched Ultima Online, we had lots of plans, shall we say, about the virtual economy and how we would try to keep that in balance. But we quickly realized that that is an amazingly complicated activity. Literally, countries have risen and collapsed over how an economy was managed. One of the most interesting surprises was what began to happen with what is now referred to as real money transactions, but at the time, we frankly didn't know what to call it. That concept of somebody deciding that this virtual item was worth real money had never crossed our minds. How can that happen? How can that occur? And where are these objects being created? To whom are these objects being sold? Who are these people?
I guess my earliest memory of video games was Zelda for the original Nintendo. It was the first game I felt like I had to come back to. It was a grand adventure, discovering new things, and it was really captivating. But my first experience with what I'd call more hardcore role-playing games was Ultima Online. The game was online, and when you ran into other people in the game, they were real people. And I found that to be very, very exciting.
The game always involves getting to the next level. That's what drives you to really want to get your hands on the virtual resources that will help you. And there's always that sense of achievement when you hit the next level. That's what people are talking about when they describe these games as addictive.
That same time, I had opened my first company. I owned a computer hardware store, and we were very successful. But when Ultima Online came out, that business failed, and it went bust because I was young, dumb, and because I ended up spending 40 hours a week playing the game. We ended up $180,000 in debt, and I didn't have a penny left. I ended up having to go out and get a day job for a while. That was really not in my nature. I really feel like I'm destined to be self-employed and nothing else. My wife, he just mentioned one day that all this time and energy I put into the game, it really would be nice if I were making some money at it. And I agreed.
Sure.
Please. All right.
The first incidences of people paying real money for virtual goods go back into the 90s with the games like Ultima Online, where people started selling their characters. You know, their characters would acquire power, and then someone could sell their character for real money.
So I decided to look on eBay because I had heard that a couple of sales had happened, and lo and behold, I think there was 2 auctions up there. Just some simple stuff, like maybe $1 million gold for $100, and different items that you'd find advantageous to have on your character in the game, and they were selling them for real money.
We were sitting around one day, and one of our employees came in and said, guys, come check this out. Come look what's up on eBay. And I believe it was a sword, something a player could get after playing for, a dozen hours or so within the game, was up on eBay being sold for tens, maybe even a couple $100.
I said, I think that I could do that too. And it coincided really well with what my wife said. And so I decided to try it. In Ultima Online, you have skills, but then you have to work on those skills to raise them up higher. And when you get 100 on one of those skills, you'd be considered a Grand Master. I think it was probably 8-9 months before I Grand Mastered my first skill. And that was with playing a lot. And I put up that game account for sale on eBay. I ended up getting $2,400. And I was like, holy shit, I can really do this.
And since that time, it's been a pretty constant phenomenon. The minute someone announces a game, there's somebody on eBay posting an auction.
If you look at the real world, time is money. If you wanted to have a powerful magic sword, in theory, you could play the game for 100 hours and earn one yourself. Or you go to eBay and buy one from somebody who did spend 100 hours.
The market was starting to mature. I mean, it happened really pretty quick, that from seeing just a couple of auctions to seeing 100 auctions in maybe a couple of months.
Back then I was only 12 or 13. I couldn't open my own PayPal account, I couldn't open my own eBay account. I couldn't really do any type of online business myself, so basically I had all my mom's credit card numbers memorized. I'd pick up an account for $300. 2 weeks later, I'd go and create a new advertisement on eBay. An account I bought for $300, I might be able to sell for $600. When you're 13 years old, that's a lot of money.
First, a story of financial success by selling goods that don't really exist. Bob Kimblinger of Raleigh County buys and sells virtual items like weapons, real estate, and gold.
And I was thinking, if people will buy baseball cards doesn't really have any intrinsic value, but it's a sign of value because of supply and demand and scarcity. Why wouldn't they buy these items? So just for the heck of it, I put some of my items that I owned up on eBay and they sold.
The business we work in is known as RMT. RMT stands for Real Money Trade, the exchange of virtual currency or virtual goods for cold hard cash. This is the first auction I ever put up on eBay for virtual currency. I sold it for $31.03. I would have never ever imagined that the stuff would be able to sell for real money and have any real value.
And within a couple of weeks of that, there was a blacksmith shop, and the listing went over $10,000 on eBay.
So why do people buy these things, right? I got an assignment from Wired magazine to write about the virtual economy of Ultima Online, and ended up writing about Tower, which was a mid-sized type of house you could own that Wonder Bread delivery guy in Oklahoma had bought for $500-600. Why? Why would you spend this kind of money on something that doesn't really exist? You gotta understand there's a lot of things in our world outside of virtual worlds that are essentially virtual goods. The perfect example of a virtual good that exists in the real world is this, right?
Take money out of your pocket and look at it. It doesn't have any real value, but you treat it like it's the most valuable thing in the world. Where's all that value coming from? I mean, the fact is, when you think about it, maybe our notions of value have been wrong all these years.
These games are social worlds in which people are achieving and wanting their achievement to be known to other players. There never has been a very clear division between what's virtual value and what isn't. The economic value of abstract, non-tangible things has always been a phenomenon. People will spend $100 for a magic sword that doesn't have any existence in the real world. Well, they're crazy people, you may say. Economists don't care how crazy you are to value something. If you value it, it has value. If enough people value it, it really has value.
Let's coffee it up, man. It's time. It's very strange. I'm like, there's a guy following me with a camera. It's kind of weird. There's a type of person that just sees a process or a business problem and just wants to solve it. So once the coffee's up, push the bagel down, and then breakfast is on. You look at something and you say, well, I can solve this problem. I can write software to do this, and you just want to strike out on your own. I actually got down the path of programming and video gaming when I got a computer. When I was 12 years old, I got a VIC-20.
Why buy just a video game from Atari? Invest in the wonder computer of the 1980s for under $300, the Commodore VIC-20.
You could program it, and you would enter this basic code, and when I first started, I didn't know what the code was. I would just type in whatever it said, and then you hit run, and it does something. You get a bouncing ball, and I realized I could change it. And that was how I got started completely. Still to this day have no formal training programming at all. The funny thing is, I didn't really want to write software for a living. To me, well, a programmer is a guy that sits down at a desk doing the exact same thing. That didn't seem like anything I wanted to do. I kind of want to work for myself, want to make something cool. You're just not going to hit a home run when you're working for the man. It just can't happen.
See you tonight.
Bye.
So we created MarkyDragon.net specifically for our sales of the intangible goods. And it became quite an empire. We became the place to go for anyone who was wanting to buy goods or had goods that they wanted to sell to us. Got all this warehouse space for our failed limo company. Got one failure right over here. We'll hopefully have that sold soon. And if anybody needs to rent some space, take you over to the call center. So we've got several workstations around here. Not real professional looking, as you can see. You know, it's all put together so that we could move out in a hurry, if we wanted to. This is our call center. They take care of the daytime orders on the weekends and provide all the customer service. So these ladies man the weekend. Is that politically incorrect to say it that way? And I found that once I went and dedicated myself to working on the business, that the next month we almost doubled in sales. I was probably making a good $6,000 to $8,000 a month in profit.
Some people say.
What have you got here? Is this a big order? Big dollar amount?
Yes, it is. In a short amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not gigantic, but he's growing.
So RMT has supported my family. Look at my license plate. This is just my passion. I really enjoy doing it. I mean, what better thing is there than to do something for a living that you love doing? Although I have to work hard, and I worked very hard, a lot of hours to get where I'm at, I know my wife understands me. Took a few years. But with the kids, I mean, it's tough. You know, my father worked really hard, a lot of long hours. He owned his own business for quite a while, and he wasn't around much. And that, to me, it's okay. Because he provided me with a lot of opportunities that I may not have had otherwise. And so part of building my empire and building my businesses is there's sacrifices to be made.
What would you like to do today, Jared?
Hey.
You want to paint? Hey, Jared, what are you doing?
Okay, this is the Flintstones.
I've always been a very competitive person. Before I really got involved in online games, I participated in Taekwondo for 5 or 6 years. I got my black belt in Taekwondo when I was 9 or 10 years old, and then that kind of carried over into my gaming life. My freshman year of college didn't go so well. I was very addicted to Counter-Strike at that time. That kind of left me in bed through most of my programming classes. So I kind of, I guess, a breakdown after my freshman year where I was like, I don't know what I want to do anymore. You know, I love games. I want to be involved with games.
I was told by my parents that I was wasting my time, wasting my life.
Just be normal.
There were many arguments.
Come on, Jared.
Get your ass up and do something with your life.
I actually went to work in a Chinese restaurant. That's when I kind of really got interested in Asian culture. At the end of the year, I decided that I wanted to go study abroad. There was only one elementary study abroad program, and that was for Chinese. So I said, you know, hey, what the hell? I'll go and do it, see how it goes.
I've envisioned a persistent universe game that you could be an individual character within this living, breathing world.
World of Warcraft was game-changing. It really put massively multiplayer games or online gaming on the map.
It was just one of those game worlds that really knew what it was. And I think that was part of the vibe that people experienced when they jumped into the product. It just felt like, just every rock feels like it's placed with love and care.
I played World of Warcraft pretty heavily. You know, I'd get home from work and I'd fire it right up and level my Warlock because, you know, I can burn things.
Back when I first started playing on the Chinese servers, I thought it would be a really good way to improve my Chinese and play World of Warcraft at the same time. It was just, 12 to 18 hours a day playing the game.
It's a big, goofy, free universe of infinite possibilities.
It really took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of commitment. It happened because the people here at Blizzard made that happen.
Most stuff that Blizzard had done previously, I was really a big fan of. I had played all the Warcraft games and Diablo, Diablo 2. Got into the game and it was amazing. But I was also looking at it as a business person as to what we'd be able to sell for the game, whether that would be just gold or whether there would be items that you could exchange.
When I first came to China, I had already pretty much made the decision that I was going to be doing RMT full-time. And I eventually found a guy by the name of Ma Liang, who I met online. His studio located in Beijing. They always had the best quality, they always had the best service, they were the fastest, they were the cheapest. I went up to Beijing to kind of meet him, to kind of do an inspection of his studio, maybe talk some business.
We kept working and I saved a little bit of the money I was making, but I poured all the rest of it back into the company. I had put thousands of dollars worth of infrastructure in place at this point. But my wife really felt like it was really a big risk to be self-employed again because I lost so much money in my first business. We filed bankruptcy and we lost everything but our house and one vehicle. So that made my wife very nervous. And in all honesty, the sales had been going down for us. I'm not exactly sure at what point that shift happened, but I realized that I had competition out there.
Plain and simple, Chinese labor is very inexpensive. A US company might be able to hire 5 or 10 workers for the same price that a Chinese company could hire, 60 or 70.
We can't compete with that.
So that's when I kind of figured, hey, there's money to be made here.
It's the law of competition, the law of the jungle. Once you invent something, if it's a good idea and easy to copy, everybody's going to start copying it.
When this industry first started out, everything was pretty much going on in the US. With the spreading of broadband in China, it's kind of led to a revolution in terms of this industry is now controlled by China.
My name is Ma Liang. I'm 25. 我家里面呢只有我一个，是独生子女，然后我还有爷爷奶奶。我父母呢都是农民。家里面现在就是大概有10多亩的农田吧。 还养了一些羊。我的家呢在北京的一个郊区，他们一直都觉得很神秘，但是具体我做什么他们都不知道。
Let's say I'm a rich dentist living in America, and I don't really have the time to level my character up. Well, I do have money, and there are people living on the other side of the world who really don't have a lot of money. They don't have many job opportunities, but they do have internet connections and they know how to play the games.
来，我帮你们介绍一下啊。然后，咱们看到的这个房子呢，是我父母住的地方，还有洗澡间。然后呢，这个是炒菜用的，这个是做饭用的东西。后面你看到一个沙袋，员工可以过来打的东西。看的比较奇怪，这个是装粮食的，就是储藏粮食的东西，就算是一种。然后呢，这个是我的小狗，比较可爱一点。
我跟马良是在网上面认识的，我们在一起，并不是说因为我们都喜欢游戏，算是我们发现的一个共同的爱好吧。很荣幸接触到这个行业，让我知道原来游戏也可以挣钱。
然后我带你们过来看一下咱们工作室里面的情况，好吧？
There's an incentive for those guys to get together in sweatshops, and they do this. They'll work these 12-hour shifts where all they do is play the game and take resources out of it. It's called gold farming. And then the guy who runs the sweatshop puts all the pieces and the characters and everything together and goes onto a site like eBay and sells them to the highest bidder.
我们代练的是纯人工的，是付出劳动力的。我们付出劳动力，你付给我们 money。这个是一个劳动，是从远古时代到现在都是一样的。我是不是要？
Ma Liang he's just a huge teddy bear. He's very reliable. I send orders over to him. The accounts come out with extra gold. The customers are very happy. We have a fantastic business relationship.
我们家里呢，现在有很多的员工，一个很好的一团队，我们都是一群朋友，对吧？ 这个呢是我的兄弟，这个是我的发小，这个呢你们会看到一个非常瘦弱、非常瘦小的一个身影，但是你们千万不要小瞧了，而且包括交友方面他也很牛。然后呢，这个呢也是我们刚刚新到的一个员工，操作呢也很不错，人呢比较沉默，平时呢比较酷啊那种。
This is a great way to blow off steam. Yeah, I like to use the grenades.
So you're good at reverse engineering, software development, and chucking grenades.
So I formed MDY Industries, and I said, okay, we're gonna do web work for hire, database work for hire, whatever. This is gonna end badly for me. I said, I'll do that until I come up with an idea. I can make twice as much money as a salary. And then I started playing World of Warcraft. Played WoW pretty heavily for the first couple of weeks after I got it. I had a bunch of friends. We all played together. It was very exciting.
这行工作做的也比较开心，因为我平时是一个特别喜欢玩的游戏玩家。做这工作的时候，我天天都可以玩，然后我天天都觉得很开心。
我们就不学习，就在一起学。
The game that they were being paid 30 cents an hour to play. How do you still love the game after that? And yet every day at the end of the shift, went downstairs and played more World of Warcraft. They kept playing. These guys were gamers.
还最重要的还有我在这儿有一帮朋友，因为一个人玩的时候快乐总是有限的，很多人一起玩的时候你会得到更多的快乐。
I wouldn't be playing this game anymore if it wasn't for the people and the people that you get to meet through it.
I met my husband on World of Warcraft. This is him, Justin. The name of our guild is Hubris.
The name of our guild is Perpetual Dream. The guild is like a family. It's a bunch of people that you kick it with. They care about you, you care about them. It's where you fit in.
Talking about real friendships, that's what these are. This is our generation's bowling league. We've got this much larger community because it encompasses, nations.
在我们这里，我 我们会去努力帮他赚一些金币，他会得到那份快乐，你也会分享到。
Everybody's gonna think, oh, we just play WoW all day, huh?
I know. Not really, we don't. Sometimes we touch the max. So World of Warcraft comes out, and I joined a guild. My first guild was this guild of Canadian guys. The big problem was I couldn't play with them because they were too high of a level for me. So if I went with them somewhere, I was a major liability because I'm the little tiny guy. So if we're in a level 50 zone and I'm in there at 40, you know, I would just get flattened. And the reason was they played a lot. They played a lot more than I could play because I actually was very busy with this girl, Maria. You know, we started seeing each other a lot, and for a gamer to want to spend more time with a human than a video game, that was kind of novel for me. I felt like I was growing up. But as dumb as it sounds, that really cut into my WoW time a lot, you know, reality. So when I got to play, the most important thing to me was to try to level as fast as possible because I knew I only had like 2 or 3 hours, and if I could get a level or two, I'd get a little closer to the Canadians. At that time, it was very fast level by grinding. I could sit in a small area and I would kill monsters over and over and over again. And each time you kill a monster, you get a little experience. The way the game's designed, you push 5 buttons, and it's almost always in the same order. Tab to select a monster, Immolate to light him on fire, Corruption, Curse of Agony, go to the next guy. There's only like 5 spells you use. It's very mechanical. And I think, well, first off, this is boring. Second, if I can automate it, then I don't even need to be here for it because I can let it run and then I can leave. So the first thing I do is go on the web and try to find one. I'm like, well, I'm sure somebody's thought of this. You know, I've thought of enough great internet ideas and then had them dashed by going to Google and seeing that everyone else already thought of it, that I know somebody's thought of it, and they had, you know, there were these bots for WoW.
Botting is basically a computer program that plays the game for you. A lot of people think you get to the highest level in a game and it's over. MMOs, it's the exact opposite. When you get to the highest level in the game, that's really when, you know, the exciting content starts. So a lot of players would rather have a bot level their character up to the highest level rather than spending up to a year to level to the highest level themselves.
And I looked at all these things, and there was a problem with each one that I looked at. So the next idea I had was, well, I'll just make it myself. It can't be that hard to do. So I made a little test program. It was called Glider. The end goal of Glider was to catch up with the Canadians. So once I caught up, you know, I put it away. I never used it. They asked me, how'd you get to level 60? Because you keep telling us you got this beautiful new girlfriend.
Mike would be outside of a little starting zone and he'd be like, hey, you gotta come see this, it's really neat. So we'd all stand around and we'd just watch his guy basically walk around and just start killing things, and he's like, I'm not even playing.
I tell him I wrote a program and it plays my character for me. I ran it, you know, every night until I reached level 60. And one of the guys, he says, you know, maybe you should sell that. So, oh, this is a great idea. So I put a little PayPal page up where you can give me $15 and I'll give you Glider. Maybe I can make a couple $100 a month on it. It would be a nice side income. It was certainly nothing that I would consider to grow into a real business. So I post on some other boards. You know, people show up and they're like, well, you know, is this cheating? I said, well, I don't think so. I'm not hacking the game. Glider, it doesn't modify the game. It just sends keystrokes and mouse movement. What I'm selling is a piece of software that automates a video game. Screw them, I can do this. Oops.
God's order from you for 1,000 gifts.
Hello, can you hear me, sir? Did you place 300 gold for Warcraft? Okay, we just received your order, so we need to confirm it, okay? Okay, we will deliver the gold to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Game for Power is without a doubt one of the top 3 RMT companies in China right now. In terms of World of Warcraft, they can do anywhere from 4 to 6 million gold per day. I believe they have over 300 employees.
Do you remember your order for 1,000 gold? Okay, thank you. We'll talk to you in the game, and the player will tell you where to meet. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4。我们提供的是一种综合性的在线的虚拟服务，像是游戏内的货币，国外那种像 Amazon， 还有 eBay， 在提供的就是类似于相关的东西，一种服务性质的东西，在我们的第二个生命里，我们的 Second Life 里面真正发挥作用的，这个必然会形成一个行业。
公司工作其实是属于机缘巧合，对我来说，我不是个非常爱玩游戏的人，然后也是觉得很感兴趣吧，然后觉得这种事情从来没有尝试过，做也还不错。大学里我的专业是国际贸易，有的同事跟我妈妈说，女孩子没有必要读那么多书，怎么，早点嫁人也比较好。但是妈妈说，女孩子读点书对以后会有很大的帮助，所以我一直在学习。
There's this latent demand of time-stressed North Americans and Western Europeans, and then this supply of gold pieces that could come out of places like Indonesia and China and Eastern Europe. And then this companies like Internet Gaming Entertainment, IGE, stepped into the gap with a very easy-to-use web interface, instant service, instant delivery of the goods that you bought. You know, no more mucking around with reputations on eBay. They facilitated the whole thing, and they made a lot of money.
I don't usually look like this. You guys happen to be here on the day of the Grammys. And I'm trying to look as much like a rock star as I possibly can, or should I say Brock star. I had a break to star in a local film called Mighty Ducks. Disney then flew me out to Los Angeles to shoot Mighty Ducks 2. After coming out to Los Angeles, ended up booking films one after another until I decided I really didn't like acting anymore.
You're not just letting your team down, you're letting me down too.
I wasn't cut out for college, so I dropped out pretty quickly and went off to starting businesses as I saw kind of the entrepreneurial opportunities in the world unfold. So I spent about a year and a half playing EverQuest with the intentions of building IGE in mind. There was also another entrepreneur, Jonathan Yantis, has started a business called My Super Sales. I think I made the decision to enter the market shortly after he did an interview with Wired talking about how much money he was making.
So I started selling Glider, and I had my registration process set up so that it would email my phone. So every time someone bought a key for Glider, beep, I get a beep. I remember my first sale, I was out with my friend Lou, and we're out at a pub in Phoenix, and we're sitting there and turn on my phone, and it just starts beeping, like vibrating across the table. Bzz, 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 bzz.
The RMT market was growing, but it didn't really explode until World of Warcraft came on the scene. We knew the game was going to be massive once it launched. It caused our business to, I think, grow by 3- or 4-fold.
The rise of IGE was simply a confirmation that this market was for real. When a company like IGE comes along and it's no longer one of these little mom and pop shops, but a multinational business, that's something a broader audience can really recognize as undeniable.
Right now, Game for Power is working on purchasing a new building, which is very, very impressive.
通过这样的企业本身的这种提升，而会有更多的杰出的人才或者是团队来加入过我们的行业，这也是我们企业一直所期望的，我们可以达到的这样的一个高度。
And the numbers just kept climbing. It got to like 10 a day, 15 a day, and I mean it got to the point where a 20 sale day was pretty normal. And now you're looking at $6,000 a month. If that holds up, that's a real job.
Yeah, it was through Glider, gliding 2 accounts at the same time. Take that, legit players.
At first, it was a small number of transactions, and over time, those transactions became very substantial, over 10,000 transactions a day. At that sort of scale, we needed hundreds of employees to actually fulfill the number of orders we had. And that's really when my company, IGE, took off and was on its way to doing $100 million in revenue.
而我相信，这个行业只要虚拟世界存在，只要网络游戏存在，永远不会终结。
Okay, so. Hello, I'm Marcus Eichenberry, and today I want to announce something pretty cool. See these models here? Yeah, it's me over here behind all this stuff. Some developers, like Second Life, embrace real money trade. The big American MMOs, the ones that are typically subscription, they've not embraced this.
What we do in these games is we set you really cool goals that take a long time to get. Secondary markets very much sell ways to shortcut time. So anything that impacts people staying around for a while is costing these companies huge amounts of money. I would easily say over the first couple of years, probably millions of dollars.
There are a lot of people in this industry who hate what we do.
Get hate mail every day, and there's always people that have some beef with me.
I've seen lots of people who feel angry that other players are taking advantage of this market to get ahead in the game. Then I see people irritated with the presence of spam in the chat channels that's generated by a lot of the gold farming companies. There's a lot of indignation and, frankly, xenophobia about their presence.
10 cents an hour is good money when you're Chinese.
I just enter the game and ask one people to another if they need some gold. Sometimes very angry. Someday I just ask people, do you need gold? And they just leave me alone or did not interrupt me.
Take one down and I felt inspired. Corpse camp until it's trying to man gets fired.
生气的时候说的那些话我听不懂，但是在我这边的话，我只能说 sorry， 一个劲的说 sorry。
Every economist worth his salt will say that if there's a demand for something, it's legitimate. So, on its surface, somebody wants to trade virtual gold for real dollars, you can't really oppose that. But this gives the developers a problem. They're mostly designing this game for a certain kind of person, somebody who lives in North America, who has a certain amount of money, who has a certain amount of time, and the value of their time is such and such. And when real money trade comes in, and you get armies of gold farmers turning it into more commerce than game, that destroys the value of the game, for the developers, for the players. It just kind of wrecks the entire game experience for you.
They would find the area of the game that actually provided the greatest value for the least effort, and then they would also defend that turf. So if a real player wandered into that area, because another player would then be interfering with these miners' real world source of real income, they would very militantly block the real players from access to that whole part of the game. That is understandably something you would find offensive, and so I think Blizzard, not surprisingly in my mind, did their best to stop it.
If I could see the writing on the wall that things are going to get put in place, it's like if too many people are speeding, and they're going to regulate it and put in a speed limit and stop that from happening. And that's what was starting to happen. Basically, the game publisher is God. They can do anything they want to, and you have zero recourse. And so I always looked at this as something that could go poof instantly.
Let's say that you could sell gold in the real world and make money doing that. This has really bad implications that are negative to the wider group of players that just want to play the game. You have sweatshops that spend all of their time harvesting gold from the games. You have people who write Trojan programs to steal credit cards and player accounts and passwords so they can sell your gold to the rich Americans.
Think of all the password hacking and account hacking you've heard of. As soon as you get real money involved, you have crime.
There are hundreds of hacking farms throughout China. They'll put a Trojan horse on your computer. They might steal your email address and send you a fake Blizzard email. They might directly steal your account information through keylogging. These studios can make a lot of money. This is a big problem for the industry right now.
So we do whatever we can to try to minimize the financial rewards from behaving in this way.
I'm an attorney, and I've actually focused my entire practice on this emerging field of virtual law. When you buy a game, you're presented at some point with a license agreement. Usually it's an end-user license agreement, and it includes something called the terms of use or terms of service. The company that runs World of Warcraft or any other game isn't selling you the software. They are providing you a license to use their intellectual property under a series of conditions that they've laid out. They can terminate your license to use the software based on your violation of the terms of service. At that point, you theoretically no longer have a right to use the software that you bought at the store that you downloaded online. Game companies take the terms of service and the end-user license agreement very seriously. A game like World of Warcraft is, the crown jewel of the company that runs it. It has to protect that space.
假如说暴雪真的来，首先来说，我觉得这个本身就是一个误区，我没有影响你的游戏平衡。
And they say exactly that. They say, how does it hurt anybody? We're there, we're farming gold, we're quiet about it, we're generally not there trying to harass anybody. But Blizzard's argument is that they do. The fact that, you can go in and buy a bunch of gold for real money, changes the in-game economy that Blizzard has tried so hard to balance.
Unlike the real world where the resources are relatively finite, in a game, it's an unlimited supply of money. We can make it anytime we want. Well, the side effect of gold farmers mining the game is that the virtual economy will now begin to inflate.
And that requires resources on Blizzard's part. And so Blizzard says, we ought to be able to throw people out of the world for doing this. And so they write their terms of service and end-user license agreement so they can.
Every time you log into the World of Warcraft, you have to click on an agreement that clearly states that, pretty much everything we do in this industry is against the game's terms of service.
Have I ever violated terms of service? Yes.
而我们在做的只是让一个玩家用最短的时间内得到按照开发公司所设定那种很长时间才能得到的东西，这个对他们来说是一种利益上的损害，而这一点我们可能可以称之为对立的。
Blizzard doesn't appreciate what we do very much. They love to suspend and ban our accounts. There's obviously a huge problem for us because, opening a new World of Warcraft account costs quite a bit of money.
所以我们就想办法去买一些代理，屏蔽掉我们自己的 IP。但是这个代理有的时候也会中断啊，所以有的时候我们会经常面临大面积的封号问题啊。
That's when I figured out that Blizzard actually doesn't like Glider. They hate Glider. And I found that out very painfully.
Some breaking news. World of Warcraft has banned a lot of accounts. The Glider guys noticed over lunch that their forums server took a dive. And in fact, right here you can see their server's too busy. It's still too busy. Anyway, the rumors going around is that Blizzard busted them and took them down.
The forums are full of people saying, oh yeah, I got this letter from Blizzard and it says that I used unapproved third-party software and now my account's gone. And I can't play anymore and everything I worked for is gone.
We had sold $291,000 worth of accounts in about 10 weeks. And Blizzard figured out how to tie them all together, and they banned all of them. And so what happened was all these reversals started coming in. And it was around $250,000 worth of chargebacks and reversals. I looked at that and I said, crap, business is gone.
What about the class action suit saying that this is destroying our game? And
Unfortunately, that's one I can't talk about for legal reasons.
I think virtual law really came into being for the same reason that a lot of areas of law come into being, and that's because it got to the point where it was lucrative enough that people started paying close attention to it. It's fascinating because there's this entire industry that's set up around violation of the World of Warcraft terms of use. It's so big that China has moved to tax virtual gold sales because it wants its piece of the pie. And so that raises a legal question. If the World of Warcraft responds in some way by banning accounts or by taking away people's virtual property, do those people have any recourse?
When we think about real money in the game, the real question for me is, what do we do about it? Because we're making a game. We are selling entertainment. We're not a bank. We also knew these swords could break. If they had paid us a large sum of real money for those items, they would have both moral and probably legal recourse against our company. So we didn't officially support it, but we didn't think that it was stoppable. And Blizzard had the financial capability and also the motivation due to the size of the money to really work much more actively against it.
And for me, I was amazed. I was like, whoa, how did they ban all these people? I mean, we had maybe 600 or 700 Glider customers, and everybody that used Glider in the last couple days was gone. Warning. That's when I learned about Warden. There's this component inside World of Warcraft, and it looks around on your computer for Glider. And it would say, oh, if you have a window open with a title Glider, like Notepad or anything else, then it would send a message back up to the server. It'd say everybody that we knew had Glider, close their accounts. Of course, the reason why they do that is to create terror and fear. So they would collect all these people and ban them, and then nobody wanted to buy Glider anymore. And that was a tough spot for me. I was looking at it and I said, well, the easiest thing to do is to just, all right, well, so much for this idea. They don't like it. But it was making enough money, and I thought, and I still think that I had established enough of a position that I had a right to do this. I said, well, if Blizzard doesn't like it, well, that's too bad. They can detect it if they want to, but I can write my own software and sell whatever I want.
如果要是真的说暴雪过来跟我说你终止这个活动，那我肯定跟他说啊 fuck you， 你爱怎样怎样。我觉得我们做代练来说，可以给你们提供一个更好的一个游戏环境，让你做，那 OK 我们就会进行了。发个包去。
Warden's looking at window titles, and it looks for that title to be Glider. So I said, okay, I'm going to change Glider so that it doesn't say Glider in the title anymore. There you go, Warden. Good luck with that. Ha, can't find it. That was the first of the cat and mouse games.
Hold it right there.
Blizzard changed Warden to look for Glider, and they detect Glider and ban a bunch. So then I changed Glider so that it can't detect it anymore.
Don't panic, everybody. Glider's down at the moment, but that's normal. And as the comments I'm seeing in the forum from people who've been through this before, just rinse and repeat.
And I'll tell people, look, Blizzard doesn't like this program. If you run it, there's a chance you're going to lose your account if they detect it. They hate it, but as far as I'm concerned, I think if you want to take the risk, you can buy it, and I think it's good software, and I'm going to do my best to keep you from getting detected. And that went on for over a year. And during that year, the Glider sales just kept climbing. By October 2006 already, it was on the order of like $40,000 a month. That was great. It was the fruit of my labor, and we got to enjoy it. Now, up to this point, they had never contacted me about Glider. Anyway, October comes around, and then I get a knock on my door. The guy says, hello, this is Shane McGee. I'm here with Blizzard Entertainment. I want to talk to you about Glider. And so the first thing I think of is like, all right, they're here to buy me out. I knew this day would come because Glider is so good for a lot of different things. They haven't tried to detect it in a year, so I know they're okay with it. That may not have actually been why they were there. I was a little off about their visit.
For years, too many Wall Street executives made imprudent and dangerous decisions, seeking profits with too little accountability. Nearly 2 million jobs have been now lost. And on Friday, we're likely to...
I remember very distinctly the day where I saw on the news, we are officially in a recession. The next day, our sales dropped by 45%. And it stayed lower like that. I mean, it was a huge deal to us because a 45% drop in revenue meant that we were losing money every day. As an entrepreneur, and I'm of the style of dream it, build it, put it into operations, turn it over. But with the recession, you know, all these dreams that I come up with, all these things I want to try have gone away. So we ended up letting go of half of our staff. We removed some really good people. And we had to totally look at it from stats and from a business view. And one of the casualties was my oldest son, who'd worked for me for a couple of years. He got laid off.
So I opened the door, and it's Shane McGee.
My name is Shane McGee. I'm going to talk about EULA's terms of service, codes of conduct, where they belong.
So we're walking down the hall, and Shane looks at me and he goes, hey, so is Maria still here, or did she already go to work? And I've known this guy for 15 seconds. And I'm like, huh? So we sit down, and Shane pulls out his briefcase, and he goes, you know, we've been following Glider a lot, and we don't like Glider. And they said, so what you gotta do is you gotta stop selling Glider, and you gotta take all the profit from Glider that you've made, and you gotta give it to us by the end of the day, and you gotta sign this agreement. Or we're gonna sue you tomorrow in California, and we got the complaint right here. You know, that's a lot to swallow at 9 in the morning. You know, in your gym shorts.
I don't know, you know, see, you have to be able to separate emotion from business. Even though it was really tough to lay off my oldest son from the job, it was something that I knew had to be done, and I did it. And that was a business decision with no emotion involved. So,
I mean, this really sucks. What's in the complaint? You know, I read through it, and it says I'm infringing their trademark and infringing their copyright and a bunch of stuff that I didn't understand. It looks scary, but the idea of signing over all the profit I made from Glider that day, just from a lawyer coming and waving a complaint in my face, that seemed like a really bad idea. I have a lawyer's number. He says, so let me get this straight, Mike. People pay Blizzard to play this game. Then they pay you so they don't have to play the game. Are you sure? And I said, yeah, that's exactly how it works. So, you know, once he understood, which it still didn't make a lot of sense to him, he said, okay, I see why people buy your product, even if it sounds stupid. He said, so what I think you should do is you should shut down the business. He says you should stop selling Glider, take the money, start a new business, do something new. Why risk it? Let's just be done with it. So I said, okay, all right, fine. So we call him up, and they say, okay, but you got to give us all the money you've made. And that's where that was the sticking point. You know, I said to Lance, I was like, well, why does the money matter to them? They're making millions of dollars a day. Why do they care if they get all the profit I made from Glider? And we said, okay, well, clearly we're not going to give you all the profit we've made and go away. I mean, that's pretty much the worst thing that can happen in court.
A lot of players were complaining about people who were using Glider. This is one of the things that came out during the lawsuit. Blizzard submitted a lot of forum posts and complaints to their customer service department about automation programs in general, and specifically about Glider because it was the most successful automation program, where people were annoyed that when they were in a certain area of the game, they'd see users who were non-responsive, who weren't communicative when asked questions, who were doing the same actions over and over, and who appeared to be on automation. and that, Blizzard said, diminished the gameplay experience of everyone else.
Both parties collect all the evidence, so we had expert witnesses, they had their expert witness write a report, and then...
Who was that expert witness?
Oh, it was Ed Castronova. He said Glider was responsible for all this bad stuff. What they were trying to do is establish damages.
I don't mind a little bit of real money trade. It doesn't bug me too much if a student wants to sell his character to buy books for school. It's when it becomes a large, corporate operation that is impacting gameplay everywhere. Then it's too much.
For Glider, we started out as an affiliate for them, just referring them sales. I was deposed by Blizzard's attorneys for information about that. It told me that Blizzard was taking a lot harsher stance on things, and it wasn't just going to be that they're going to ban accounts. They were now trying to force actions legally. But it was very, very clear to me that they wanted to stop Mike any way they could.
We've been very upfront about the lawsuit. We've done our best to explain what it all means as a developer, what it means to software in the community. Writing add-on software, there's nothing wrong with it, and having a big company attack your small company because they don't like what you're doing, mostly we're just frustrated because we'd like to do more with the tool. Maybe through victory we'll have a better story to tell.
When you build the case around copyright, you get a ton of damage. Because if they can prove that, for every Glider copy that's been sold, there is, now there's some copyright infringement to the game, that just racks up to an enormous number. Millions and millions and millions and millions.
What it comes down to, though, is, a very simple point, and that's that in the World of Warcraft terms of use, it says you can't use automation programs.
They added that after they sued me.
And so Blizzard's argument is every time you load your now unlicensed game, you're violating Blizzard's copyright.
CEO of Blizzard, Mike Morhaime, he's the main guy there. I actually talked to him. He said, hey, let's have a private settlement discussion. So, he calls me up and, he says, hey, I don't like lawyers, I don't like how this whole thing works, but, you gotta shut down Glider and give us all your money. If we lose, we're going to appeal, and we're going to keep appealing until we win. And I was like, I've heard this. I heard this on day one.
Everyone at Blizzard, I'd like to thank you for keeping us on our toes.
So, that was the end of the call. And then, of course, we filed our motions. My lawyer looked at the law, and he's like, well, I don't see where it's copyright infringement. Did you copy anything? I'm like, no. I'm like, well, does Glider copy anything? Like, no, Glider doesn't copy anything. It puts keystrokes into the game. There's no copying. He's like, well, I don't see where they have a really good case. I think if we were to litigate this, we'd probably win.
And instead, the court decided against him on essentially every claim that Blizzard made. And so the court held that MDY was liable for copyright infringement, and that Mike Donnelly personally was responsible for this because of his relationship with the company.
Yeah. So we approached him and said, look, we'll agree not to appeal. We'll take the money that's in MDY, go away, start another business. They weren't interested. And I said, no, we want your guy, they told my lawyer this, we want your guy to suffer. We want a pound of flesh from your guy.
I think you're just finding that judges are intimidated by the technology, but they're starting to sort of realize that while it might look a little cartoony, there's real money changing hands and people's livelihoods are at stake.
So there's a good chance that if it's not turned over on appeal, it's just on me the rest of my life. Meaning, I can't start a company and have a company checking account because I own that company and I owe Blizzard $6 million, so they can just call the bank and then, it's gone. So it pretty much wipes out my ability to live. I'm sure you've seen on the board up here, we have our predictions in the last judgment. See my prediction, I predicted all zeros, which was correct. So I won the pool and got the free beer. But unfortunately, I lost $6 million.
So tonight is league night, Portland Pinball League. Let's see if I can kick some butt. RMT, I don't know. It's a vehicle at the moment. It is what is hot and what we can address, and if we get that fixed, we go on to the next thing to address. But I think that the RMT market is eventually going to disappear. How long will that take? I don't know. But could I see it completely gone in 10 years? Yes.
单量现在不是很乐观啊，不是很太多啊。员工都在休息啊，但是还要照常支付给薪水啊。这样不好。
生活啊，我跟玛利亚还没结婚呢，就是说我就是尽我们最大的努力，我们想就是说过最好给就包括孩子。如果可以，我希望一直在这儿待下去。
When I first started out, I wasn't really planning on farming gold. I kind of figured, anyone can do that. I want to do something interesting. I just sat down and I thought, what do I want to do? I love games, I want to be involved with games, but farming gold is just not going to work.
I grew up playing Blizzard games. I wanted to make my own Ultima Online or my own World of Warcraft and recreate that world.
我现在从事这个行业呢，完全是因为，我手底下现在有很多的员工啊，他们现在一直在跟着我啊，只会做这个行业，所以我底下养了这么多人，我必须得为了他们，然后继续从事这个行业。
I'll tell you what, though. How about that opaque user interface, man? It's coming together, you like it. And all the server components are all done, man. All the load balancing, all the database stuff. UDP, Packet Mania, it's ready to go, dude. But we gotta do all the bandwidth throttling and stuff. Oh, looks like the tide's way in today. Yeah, you can get some surfers out there for sure. Whoa, look at that, man. That's some serious wave action today. It's actually pretty warm out, too. Court said, okay, you have to stop selling glider and you have to make sure no one can use it. So that was, the big thing for us. So we stopped glider and we said, okay, you can't buy keys anymore. And when you go through a big legal battle like that and you lose at the end, and that's tough. That's hard to take. I mean, that's how you find out what you're made of, because it's really easy to just say, oh, throw your hands up and say, oh, the world's against me, and you're done. And you're going to be down for a while, and we were pretty beat up, and we said, well, what are we going to do? I talked to Jay about it. He said, I'm going to go back to Santa Cruz. And he said, Mike, maybe you should come to Santa Cruz. I mean, what do you have in Phoenix? There's so much negativity there, just sitting in the kitchen. Every time I sit down at that table, I look where Shane sat. And I said, he sat right there. He didn't sit over there. He sat right there. And, you got to get away from that. So, I came out here 4 months ago, and it's just been great.
We were just kind of like, what next, where to go, and Phoenix was pretty grim for us. I mean, we just, kind of a grim place anyways, but we just,
That's true.
We needed to change the scenery, and Mike really needed to change the scenery, because obviously the lawsuit's even more personal to him. So I knew I wanted to move back here, and I just looked at him and said, why don't you come with us? And he came up, checked it out, 2 weeks later moved out here, and we've been hanging out ever since, so...
Yeah. I mean, I've never lived anywhere other than Phoenix. I lived in Italy for a year when I was a kid, but finally a chance to go live somewhere nice. I mean, look at this. The Book of Life, somewhere it says when
Book of Life,
when you lose a copyright infringement suit for copies that you didn't know were being made or didn't think really existed, then you move to a beach town. If I'd known these things existed, beaches, who knew? If I'd known they existed,
we were making so much
20
money in
years
Phoenix.
ago?
What were we doing in Phoenix? But
I know, man.
and now we're here without all the money, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll make some more money. Yeah.
Well, if you can't handle the donkey joke, then you're not going to be around me very long, you know?
Hello, I'm Marky Dragon, and today I have a very important announcement for you. We are making a huge change. We are exiting out of all business that violates the terms of service of any game, because we are on a goal to legitimize this market. Gosh. It's been 13 years almost of us doing this kind of stuff. With it being gone, it's very upsetting for me. It's very upsetting that I have to give this up, but this is the right choice. Eventually what's going to happen is that these games that are very against RMT are going to wise up when the new games come out that are fully embracing this, just like Mafia Wars does. They figured out how to provide everything within the game for money that goes directly to the publisher. And that's the way things are gonna go.
I had already started to see, for the most part, how the industry was evolving. Here in Eastern culture, China, Korea especially, microtransaction model of online games, where the company provides some items in-game that are only available by spending real money. And that's widespread here in Asia.
What you're seeing now, and I think where the largest growth exists, and especially if you're paying attention to Facebook, that the free-to-play model is a very effective one. RMT in the secondary market, or call it microtransactions, is the future of the video game industry.
We will never surrender. Battle station, commence fire.
Where do I see myself 10 years? Who knows? I hope that I can be successful enough to support my family so that I can provide them everything that's needed and wanted.
Are you still close with your first son?
With my first son? No. I didn't do well. So that has been something that's really bothered me. And I would love to have a great relationship with him, but in many cases, I don't know how to talk to him. I can't figure out what he's thinking. It doesn't mean I quit trying. I've made a little bit of progress, but it's still a road that we haven't reached the end of it yet. I hope that I'm doing much better with my younger son, George. And I think I am. I spend a lot more time with him than I did with my first son, Michael. So we do some video games together. We play pinball together. George is very into Boy Scouts. In fact, George is on track to make Eagle in 8th grade. And for anyone who knows how hard it is to make Eagle, most of the kids make it at 16 or 17, and he'll be making it at 13. So I take him with me when we're going out different places. He likes to go out adventuring with me. That, to me, is a measure of life being good. So the future before us is to see what ways we can work together to bring these to an acceptable market, where we can look back at this video and say, you know, what is it like right now and what impact have we made then? And I'm sure we'll have made a big impact. So that's where we go from here. For any reason you decide that you're not happy with the game, you can sell it back to us for basically half the price. Make sure you use the discount code there. It helps support the show. Hey, William, I'm gonna turn your comms back on again. We'll see if they sound okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, welcome, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Shroud of the Avatar. We are doing a special show today for the Play Money documentary filming. And so, the show today, many changes have happened over the years. One of them is that Rhonda and I got divorced. The impact on that is the obvious one. You know, friends get divided and assets get divided. Unfortunately, there was no way for the company to survive something like that. And so it just slowly withered away.
Yeah, I do miss those days a lot. Everything seemed so much simpler back then. I made $500 today sitting on my laptop playing a video game. When we first started, you know, I thought it was fair to trade time for money. It was when the industry got more into botting and hacking and just doing these things that were what I felt very detrimental to players that I thought it was time to get out. And at the same time, we had seen a decline in subscription games such as World of Warcraft. We're starting to play these Chinese free-to-play games that are making a lot of money in China. And then myself and my two partners, Owen and Ben, we came together one day and we're like, you know what, we're sick of this shit. Like, why don't we make our own games? We've been running for about 7 years now, and we've evolved to a point where we are an international publisher as well as developer of mobile free-to-play games. We have over 60 million registered users from 180 plus countries all over the world. And the company we took public in China about a year ago.
Am I sounding good? I'm looking good, right? I'm looking great, man. So I'm back here. It's been about 7, 8 years since I was here last. There's been a decision in the appeal, and I pretty much won. I was severed from liability. Copyright claim went my way. The tortious interference claim was thrown out. So I survived. So what I wound up doing is I wound up meeting a friend of a friend, and I got in the medical device industry. So believe it or not, I'm working on a dialysis machine now. So I went from World of Warcraft glider to kidney function. So this is the graphic interface for the dialysis machine. I've assembled all the components minus the blood pumps. So this is where patients go in. They normally have a touch screen, but ironically, I'm using a video game controller to control the GUI. I'm not gonna get sued by Blizzard this time. Probably not gonna get sued by anybody. As long as my software doesn't kill someone.
So let's go over to the devotionals and get our devotions, and then we can head out. We're gonna slay a couple of dragons, and hopefully the dragons after the business closed, I struggled with getting enough funds to relaunch. But then a really amazing thing happened.
So Marcus has evolved to be one of our best friends and one of our greatest allies, and is sort of an exemplar of things to come.
Because of the game Ultima Online, Richard is known as like the godfather of MMOs. I met him at E3. This is me with my Macho Man handlebar mustache. Yeah. I'm sitting in the bar, you know, having a drink, and Richard comes up, asks if he can sit with me, and we must have sat there for 2 hours, just him and I, and he kept bouncing things off of me. He says, we want to do this Trusted Trader program. We want to offer legit RMT for this new game that he was working on, Shroud of the Avatar. And I'm like, what? Come on, no. I'd been thinking on the heels of what happened with Diablo and their auction house.
Can you go ahead and set up how that's going to work for us and why your team felt it was important to include this new feature?
Sure. So, like Diablo as a franchise is, so predicated on kind of the item system. People just love getting the items within Diablo, and I think that's a lot of the fun of playing the game. So I think it was really natural to put an auction house within the game. The big thing that I think, is the thing we're talking about is not just the act of putting in an auction house, but allowing people to trade, for real money. We know that it's going to happen anyways. Why not instead embrace it and make it a fun part of the game itself?
So as you saw, we're going to be shutting down the Diablo auction houses. When we originally set up the auction
So
house,
it was an epic failure. But what's really interesting about it is I know that the system can work very well. I know it inside and out. How do I know that? Because in 1997, we were doing this in Ultima Online.
I think that in fact it is ultimately good for the players. It is ultimately good for the game, as long as it's well managed. Marcus is somebody that we trust, the players trust.
Now today, we are doing trusted trader services for them, which is the RMT stuff, but in a very legit manner. They specifically say, if you want to buy and sell and trade anything that is not something that they sell directly, come to us. They'll take good care of you. And that's what we do.
After we had kind of started moving out of the RMT industry, I haven't really had too much contact with Ma Liang. To the best of my knowledge, he also got out of gold farming a couple years after I did. It was us guys chilling on a farm with goats and homemade food, playing video games and making money at it. Everything was simple before we had to get into hiring hundreds of people and dealing with legal things, and the market trend is this way and this is going that way, Honestly, back then it was great. I wish life was that simple now.
Okay, I gotta live the zombies.
No dirt?
No dirt.
Life takes us in some interesting ways. I met Lisa, and we decided to get married. Lisa had 4 kids, and so I gained more family with my kids. Despite my not being around a whole lot and in the whole scheme of things, I'm really proud of them. With that relationship, and the only way to rebuild off of this is really from the ground up. Just go forth and make it happen.
I've grown so much as a programmer and a business owner from the lawsuit glider that I can't even describe it. What's the dollar value on 3 years of running your own company and growing up to over 100,000 customers? And that's the one thing the court can't take away from you. So absolutely, it worked out better for me to have fought the lawsuit than to have just shut it down.
What is my impact from here on out? Well, I have this drive to continue making things better. That's multiple levels, not just money. I don't feel like I'm there yet. Other people may think that I am, but maybe my goals are just bigger, to have a greater impact. I don't know. I have more to do. That's how I feel.
down. The only way to shut off Bitcoin is to shut off the internet indefinitely.
第一个角度，就在没有引进外面的一个资本的一个情况下，在2014年今年的一个业绩会突破。
You want to touch the legendary beard? I don't know about that.